This is a lecture from Open Tuition. For the free lecture notes that go with this podcast, please visit opentuition.com.
One of the quadrants of Ansov's matrix had diversification in it, where both markets and products change. You're in a radically different area of business. And there were two types of diversification talked about in that. There was what's called related diversification, and there was unrelated diversification. So, unrelated diversification, this is what's also known as conglomerate. So, unrelated. Conglomerates are a kind of random collection of rocks kind of stuck together and held by mud. Hence, conglomerates in an industrial or business sense is really random, very radically different businesses stuck together. Now, why would anyone do this? If you ask the directors of a company, why have you gone for unrelated conglomerate diversification? And it will come out with all sorts of rubbish. One thing I might say is synergy. Synergy is where you say the two together will operate more efficiently than being apart. They say we'll be able to combine IT departments, we'll be able to combine head offices, we'll make all sorts of economies of scale because we're combined. But let's think what they're saying here. This is conglomerate, unrelated diversification. This is like a supermarket merging with a house builder. And you ask them then, well, where is this synergy going to come from? You are buying from different suppliers, bricks versus apples. You need different sorts of finance. You need hundreds of thousands of dollars perhaps to buy a house or apartment. And you need maybe $10 for the shopping you're doing in a supermarket. The engineering or technical skills needed are very different. The IT is going to be very different. I don't know where the synergy is going to come from. You can't really combine anything. If they're truly unrelated, there is really no chance of synergy. Secondly, they might think, well, if we have one business which is kind of going like that with the economy, and another business kind of going like the other way with the economy, they're going kind of counter to each other, then the good times in ones will cancel out the bad times in the other, and vice versa. But that misses the point that you may remember from F9, that if you have listed companies, individual shareholders can arrange their portfolios as they wish. There is no need for a listed company itself to diversify. If I want shares in a supermarket and a house builder, I will arrange my shareholding to suit my preferences in those two businesses. So that doesn't really stack up either. Furthermore, what tends to happen is you bring two quite well managed businesses together. One tends to own the other one tends to be the senior one in there. And these people here have a new plaything. They say, we own you now, we have to justify our management fees and salaries and so on. We'll begin to change you. And they begin trying to change a business about which they know nothing in the wrong ways. And very often these conglomerate mergers destroy value. Many a time a company has been bought for 10 million, and then 5 years later sold back to the original owners for about 3 million, because the new owners made a mess of it. The only real justification ever on conglomerate or unrelated diversification is where you find a company which is already badly managed. And you take it over and you chuck out the old managers and you bring in new professional managers. And you turn the company round, you increase its profits, and then you can sell it on at a profit. But if you take on a company which is already well managed and you bring it into your group, if it's really well managed, there's nowhere that extra profits can actually be squeezed from if there's no synergy. And as I say, what you tend to do is to destroy value. Be very cynical, very, very doubtful indeed about unrelated diversification and the benefits that people claim from it. Next one we'll go to, all the other three, by the way, are related diversification. And first of all, we'll look at horizontal diversification. This is going into a kind of neighbouring business, if you like. There is going to be some connection horizontally. And this, an example would be SAS, which means Scandinavian Airline System. It's Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and so on. And they have got Radisson hotels. So a chain of hotels, quite very nice hotels, and in many airports they have Radisson hotels. And this works a treat. If you're booking a flight with SAS, at least very early in the morning, they can offer you on the website, would you like to book into the airport hotel the night before? Or similarly, if you're flying in very late and can't make an onward connection. It works very well because essentially they're cross-selling. The customers of the airline could well be customers of the hotel chain. They're in kind of related business, dealing with a travelling public, the kind of hospitality business and so on. They understand what makes for good customer service. And there you can get real synergies, cost saving or cross-selling. The other two are backward and forward vertical integration. And what backward vertical integration means essentially is you take over a supplier, and forward vertical integration is really where you take over a customer. So obviously not an individual customer, but it would be maybe a chain of retail shops. And you can see the superficial attraction of this. Here you are making goods. You're buying these from a supplier, you look at the supplier's financial statements, you see they're making a profit, and then you think, oh, they're making a profit out of me, how dare they? I know, I'll take them over and I'll have my profit and their profit. Similarly, in forward vertical integration, you see a shop which is stocking your goods, you see the huge prices selling that to the public, and you get a bit jealous of the price. At one time, vertical and integration was very, very popular. It's by and large out of favour a little bit now. Very much the fashion nowadays is to concentrate on what you're really good at and to outsource everything else to people who are really good at those things as well. So let's just see maybe some of the potential disadvantages of, say, taking over a supplier, maybe taking over a distribution chain. And the first one we can talk about maybe is market discipline. What I mean by market discipline is if you're the supplier and you're having to compete with other suppliers every time an order comes up to sell to somebody, you're going to be on your toes. You're going to be anxious to keep costs down, to win the contract. You're going to be anxious to keep your quality up. You're going to be innovative and so on. But if you're taken over by your customer, then everything relaxes. You know the customer's going to buy from you, almost buy any old rubbish from you. You don't have to try so hard. Perhaps better, rather than taking over your supplier, is to have 4 suppliers and each time pick from the one which is offering the best combination of quality and price. Second thing I'll put on here is kind of bad luck. I have to explain that. What I mean by bad luck is you take over a supplier, the supplier is perfectly good, but unfortunately another supplier in a couple of years has a technological breakthrough and you're left with the supplier with the inferior product. Again, it might be better to keep them at arm's length and each time choose the best of the best, really. Another problem is operating gearing. When you take over a supplier, you're taking over their fixed costs. If you don't own the supplier, all their costs to you are variable. So the proportion of fixed costs may go up in your operations, and it may possibly be a disadvantage. And the fourth thing I'll mention here, really, is that it does use capital. We always have to think, what is the best use of capital? Would it be better modernizing my company, or should I spend money on buy into my suppliers. One other disadvantage, just mentioned, more easily seen maybe in forward vertical integration here. Here we have the manufacturing part of the group, here we have the selling part of the group. The skills needed in manufacturing and selling are really quite different. And there is again the risk that the manufacturing company takes over the distribution chain and doesn't really understand the way it works and begin making inappropriate changes to it. Having said all the downsides, it's worth mentioning just one or two positives about it. And perhaps the single most important one is that if you take over your supplier, you get assurance of supply. Particularly important if there aren't many alternative suppliers around. And we mentioned this when we were talking about Porter's 5 Forces. We said that if you were reliant on one supplier for a kind of a special component, which was they were really the monopoly suppliers of this, then what you do maybe is to take them over, and then you can cut out the other people. So assurance of supply, or indeed assurance of distribution, may be one reason to do it. Another reason people sometimes talk about is a better integration of the two companies. You might save some costs. The manufacturing firm will be able to predict very, very carefully what components it needs from the supply company. But actually that's routinely achieved nowadays at arm's length transactions with different companies. They integrate their supply chains very well because of course it helps both companies to do that. Anyway, current fashion is don't do it unless there's a really good reason. You do what you do really well. Concentrate on your manufacturing. Let the component manufacturers concentrate on what they're good at. Let the distribution chains concentrate on what they're really good at. And that's probably the way in which you will maximize profits.